Well, there's a new twist today in the long-running saga over Canada's military strength in the skies. CBC News has learned the federal government has quietly begun buying key components for more F-35 fighter jets. The move comes as the Carney government has been saying the purchase of any new fighter jets is on hold. Now, sources say the money is for components for 14 of the U.S.-made jets, components that must be ordered years in advance. The discrete payments come as trade tensions continue with the Trump administration. Daniel Leblanc of Radio Canada broke this story, and he joins us now from Ottawa. So how does putting down more money change the government's narrative about the F-35?
Well, there seems to be a contradiction between the official version of events going on in Ottawa, which is the file has been under review for almost a year now. So since Donald Trump came to power and made threats of annexation, he basically imposed tariffs on the aluminum and the steel industry. The government of Canada replied by saying, well, the F-35 purchase will be under review. So it was announced in 2023 that Canada would buy 88 F-35s built in the U.S. And there was a sense in Ottawa of saying, well, we will stop that purchase from happening because we're not sure if we will buy all of the F-35s that we ordered, whether or not Canada will turn instead to Europe and for Swedish-built Gripen fighter jets. And so the issue of the F-35 became a symbol, in a sense, of Ottawa's stance towards the United States. And so learning that Ottawa, meanwhile, is discreetly paying for parts, components, which are called long lead items, so items that need to be ordered well in advance, is certainly a big twist in this story because it shows that Canada is actually taking the steps necessary to buy 14 more F-35s in addition to the 16 that are already under contract. So that brings the total to 30. So it's an entirely new story that's going on. So behind the scenes, despite the government's talk about a review, Ottawa or the Canadian Armed Forces are still making payments for more F-35s.
So then, based on the information that you've uncovered, is there a sense it's time for Ottawa to clarify its plans, basically say whether it's buying more F-35s or going with a mixed fleet that could include Swedish Gripen jets?
Yeah, so everyone's saying this is a very delicate, complex file, so the final decision will come to Mark Carney. He's obviously holding the cards close to his chest. There are discussions going on with the U.S. in terms of trade, but also kind of the overall relationship, as we've seen with the issue of the bridge. It's a very complex file. At the same time, it's a very important file militarily, and experts are saying, we don't really know where the government is going. There's a very big discussions of how many F-35s do we need, whether or not we need a mixed fleet, how would that be advantageous. So I spoke to an expert at the Université du Québec in Montreal who basically says Ottawa should say more at this point.
We're in the dark and we have to rely on sources and information to journalists to understand the most important Canadian defense decision that we face, which is not normal. These should be part of public debates.
And so the government is saying very little on this at this point. So the Department of National Defense is refusing to comment these new informations. Going into cabinet, Industry Minister Mélanie Joly basically says, our policy has not changed, but if you want more details, talk to the defense minister, and we've not heard from him yet at this point. So it's a very murky file, but something's happening behind the scenes that wasn't known before.
More clarity to come, one hopes. Thank you for this. That is Radio Canada's Daniel Leblanc in Ottawa.